Withhold not your truth or kindness, Lord. Withhold not your truth or kindness, Lord.
Welcome to The Notice, where together we notice the mercy of God. I'm Susan Hoekstra, your host. On this episode of The Notice, has anyone ever told you to mind your own business? Or perhaps you have wanted to say that to somebody else. Listen into this episode where we talk about what it means to mind our own business, ways we can live quietly, and how to take notice of God and others when we do. Growing up, my mom had two philosophical thoughts she repeatedly shared with us. One, you can't think straight if you're tired, hungry, or upset. And two, to survive socially, stay away from topics such as religion, money, sex, and politics. Even the opinionated Archie Bunker from the old sitcom All in the Family said, "What you do in the privates of your room is your own privates." Yet, given the onset of social media and our dependence on it, do we respect others' privacy? It seems that our comments are a new journal, if you will, where we feel the need to share our innermost private thoughts. Instead of writing them and looking them up, we feel a need to express our thoughts with everyone. That comment button has quickly become an unfiltered succession of unsolicited opinions. Which gets me to wondering, what value does my opinion make? Don't we have other ways to express our opinions besides on social media? And does expressing our opinion make us a busybody? Let me share with you a couple meddling stories. I was on a social media site for songwriters. It was a forum for musicians to share their songs and get feedback from other songwriters. So yes, feedback was encouraged. A beautiful young lady presented a stunning song called, of all things, Skinny. This title alone piqued my interest. I thought, did someone really write a song about struggles with weight? Needless to say, I was looking forward to hearing this one. As I listened, I loved the melodic line, but I became a little confused about the lyrics. The words haunted me. God, how I hate how you made me. I just want to be skinny. Was this song for those with eating disorders or just anyone who struggles with their weight? Could I relate? Although the song was very powerful, keep in mind I was listening to it from the lens of someone who struggled with my weight but doesn't have an eating disorder. So I decided to offer a comment on the feedback loop. I shared my good thoughts about this song. I even empathized about the sadness to see a young, beautiful, thin girl struggle with how God made her. I offered a suggestion. Could it be more believable for those who struggle with their weight to have a girl sing it who had a weight problem? Typically, songwriters want to relate to as many people as we can. I also suggested she may want to reconsider some of the lyrics if she wanted to share the song with a wider audience, including those who struggle with their weight, not just those with a distorted self-image, as often happens with those with an eating disorder. Wow. The response I received, well, I'm just going to tell you, it was rather scary. Accusations and threats came. One was I was just jealous of her, and then others said I was insensitive to those with eating disorders. I read lectures about how I was just angry because her song was so good and I wanted to find something with her, not something wrong with her, not the song. I read lectures about how I was just angry because her song was so good and I wanted to find something wrong with her, not the song. I never experienced such personal, hateful comments from people I didn't even know, which prompted me to ask myself, why did they ask for feedback? Don't I get to offer my opinion? And why attack me for my opinion? Should I have just minded my own business? I'd like to say it didn't bother me, but it did. but maybe not for the reasons you might think. I saw this more as an exercise in self-awareness. As I reflected, I concluded I really wasn't wrong to offer my opinion since it was a feedback forum. I did consider if I was jealous, but after thinking about it, I knew it wasn't my intent, so I dismissed that as well. But as I found myself explaining to others only to get attacked again, I became utterly exhausted. It didn't matter how I explained myself. In their eyes, I was just a jealous fat girl. I was reminded that when others make that kind of judgment about you, it's rare that they will ever reconsider. So naturally, I stopped responding and got off that train as quickly as I got on. But it did leave me with some questions. Since when is offering opinion a form of meddling? Can we offer our perspective even if it's coming from a different place? Does sharing an opinion make me a judge? Here's another story. An extended family member was having trouble in her marriage. Her husband began to send my husband and I emails with evidence to present his side of the story. We were both so heartbroken over the news, but wasn't sure why he would send that info to us. Was this an invitation to meddle? However, both of us decided this was a mind-your-own-business kind of situation, since we didn't have all the information to offer appropriate counsel. Instead, we decided to offer our prayers and to remain open should they want to reach out. Over the course of the next few months, my husband had a conversation with him about his relationship with Jesus and the angst of divorce, but nothing about those details. We learned that the divorce was on the horizon and the process was becoming ugly. We then received an email from him saying he wanted nothing to do with us any longer. The email implied that we didn't help him fight for his marriage as good Christians should do. We had been officially canceled. And since he deleted those email accounts, we couldn't even offer any type of response. Although I understand that removing yourself from relationships with extended family in a divorce situation isn't common, why the accusations? Wasn't I just minding my own business? Friends, I'm sure you too have stories like these, and each story will have its own nuance. Is there a time and place to meddle? So, out to the scriptures I go. In 2 Thessalonians 3:11 it says, "We hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy at work, but busy bodies." Busy bodies comes from the Greek meaning not ours or none of our, meaning beeswax. I like this definition. Busybodies are people who go around meddling and prying into affairs that don't concern them, people who elect themselves overseers of things not theirs. 1 Peter 4:13 says, "But let none of you suffer as a murderer or as a thief or as an evildoer or as a busybody in other men's matters." Isn't it interesting to note that they put murderers, thieves, evildoers, and busybodies on the same list? Romans 14:1 says, "Don't quarrel over opinions." 1 Timothy 3:3 says, "Be gentle, don't be a busybody." So isn't it worth asking ourselves if it's necessary to interject ourselves into others' issues? And then there's the question of, what if they invite us? Friends, I just want to go on record saying I really don't have this all figured out. I'm struggling to understand all of this just like you. But I offer this forum to open up dialogue so that we can expand our love muscles utilizing the power of the Holy Spirit. So right now today, I'm thinking that perhaps minding my own business at its heart is focusing on what I can control and letting go of what I can't. Perhaps minding my own business is a way of honoring the choices of others. Could it also be about taking responsibility for my own thoughts and actions and reactions? Ecclesiastes 4:6 says, "Better is a handful of quietness than 2 hands full of toil and a striving after wind." Matthew 7:1-29 says, "Judge not that you not be judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use it, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eyes, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eyes. So, how do we go about minding our own business and living in this broken world? These are some suggestions I came up with to help myself. Maybe they'll be helpful to you. 1. Accept others as they are. John 8:7 says, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone. You see, each of us make mistakes, we have limits, and we sin. We can't be too surprised by our humanity. In the second story, I didn't agree with this family member canceling us, but if I'm to honor his right to make that choice, then through the lens of mercy, I need to realize that this is a reflection of him and where he is at, not me. When we accept others, a separation of ourselves and them is applied. Had this person been open to correction, repenting of sin, and busy cleaning up his mistakes, perhaps there might have been a different outcome. Until then, all I can do is pray for him. 2. Ask for permission. Oftentimes we offer our advice, our wisdom, our opinions without being asked. Perhaps we can avoid meddling by simply asking others before we speak. Could I offer a different perspective? Or could I offer a word of encouragement? Or could I share my experience with you? Proverbs 18:13 states, If one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame. 3. Take responsibility. Responsibility is a word I created to describe a simple concept. Take responsibility for your response. Many times, if we are eager to jump into someone's business, perhaps we haven't taken a minute to step back and self-regulate. Examine your feelings before responding. Feelings aren't necessarily facts, but they can lead us to the facts. So ask yourself, is this my business? Am I avoiding other things in my life to tend to this? How is this situation helping me see my deepest passions? 4. Live quietly. So how can we live quietly and mind our own affairs and at the same time stay involved? By thinking carefully through what counts as our own affairs. It makes sense to say, my family and our friends are my affairs. But there are times we don't honor or respect our family's feelings because, they are family. I can't count the number of times I've taken out my frustrations with life out on my loved ones. And I wonder if we treated our family members with the same respect, if our relationships would be different. There are times I have had to hold my tongue more often than I desire and check in with the Holy Spirit. It's a great thing that He will help us discover when to speak up, post, comment, or let it go. There are times when we can give counsel, job referrals, or other really good things to one another. But is it our job to correct others or make sure they see a different point of view? Doesn't living quietly also mean to be careful not to offer our opinion on something we know nothing about? 5. Recognize when the issue is with a non-Christian or Christian. When a human offers their perspective, they are offering it from their own experiences, education, and brokenness. All humans make mistakes, have limitations, and sins. If it's a non-Christian, we can't be surprised or offended by sin. If it's a Christian, guess what? They make mistakes, have limitations, and sin too. If it's a mistake like incorrect information or spilling the milk, have them help with the cleanup. If it's a limitation like where they are at from their own brokenness, we need to go to item number 1, which means accept them as they are. If it's a sin, in Matthew 18:15-17, Jesus tells us, if your brother or sister sins, go and point out their fault just between the two of you. If they listen to you, you have won them over. But if they will not listen, take one or two others along, so that every matter may be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If they still refuse to listen, tell it to the church. And if they refuse to listen even to the church, treat them as you would a pagan or a tax collector. 6. Pick your battles. If the first 5 points don't cover it, I would suggest that we are careful to bring up the things that really matter and to let go of little things. Is climate change my business? Is Canine West true spiritual state either? What about Starbucks Christmas coffee cups or the legal complexities of military action? And what about church hurt? I'm not saying these matters are unimportant, only that while I have a right to an opinion, could I limit offering that opinion to maybe my closest friend? Do I really need to have a public opinion on everything? Perhaps asking myself, how could I add value to this conversation would help. Ephesians 4:29 states, "Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good at the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers." I also don't think I can talk about minding our own business without talking about gossip and slander. Gossip is that casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true, or we don't know if they're true. Slander is a legal term that refers to the act of harming someone's reputation by making a false and damaging statement about them to a third party, usually orally. Exodus 20:16 states, "The 9th commandment says, 'You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.'" Bearing false witness is this: saying untrue or even speculative things about others. Friends, this is serious enough for God to include it in the 10 Commandments. Sometimes even marriages are broken up because of false rumors that someone has spread, or reputations of honest and honorable people are damaged. Christian people not only believe falsehoods, but also pass these stories on without even stopping to investigate. Starting lies about someone or spreading them is bearing false witness, a terrible offense in the sight of God. In closing, what if we simply stuck to positive news? Affirming one another, looking for the best in others. Philippians 4:8 tells us, "Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things." Maybe that's the kind of business we need to be minding too. When I was about 7 or so, when my father was still alive, he took us out on a boat to fish. It was an eventful night as he caught about a 20-inch pike. He was so excited. We brought the fish back to the cabin and cleaned and cooked it. Although I didn't care for the taste, I saw how excited my dad was to tell the story of how he caught the fish and how big it was. The fish story. As years passed, the story changed. Embellished maybe. The size of the fish got bigger, the way it was caught got more dramatic. I wondered, did the facts change or did we exaggerate? A fish story may have little consequences, but as I was wondering about minding my own business, I wonder how many times a story would change as it passes hands. You remember the telephone game you used to play? Maybe things will pass if I just don't interfere. Maybe things won't get exaggerated as the story passes. Would I be able to concentrate more on what God has for me in a day rather than what everyone else is up to? Could interjecting myself just be stirring up the pot? Friends, I challenge you. Hold back. Not everyone needs to hear your opinion. Ask the Holy Spirit to let you know when to offer value to the conversation. If you find that you just can't stop, you may want to explore some kind of creative project that will allow you to express yourself and still bring value to others. This could be writing, songwriting, painting, designing, landscaping, something that might help you process before speaking. Otherwise, we react or create on our own narratives in our mind. 2 Corinthians 10:5 states, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. Let's not assume we know what is best for everyone when we haven't checked ourselves. So maybe you find yourself frustrated because it seems your opinions don't matter, or maybe you strive to be heard. If you struggle to control those imaginations, perhaps you may be helped by one-on-one counseling. Your fish story is important. If that's you, please consider visiting my website at susankhickser.com and learn about our offerings. In the meantime, take notice.